Before we get started, just a quick note, spoiler alert.
And we are adults, and I will try very hard not to use adult language, but this is the warning. I can't wait to hear about your thoughts for Faceless Thing because I had to go look up reviews for this short story to be able to get a grasp on it.
We'll get into it. Hello and welcome to Fright Bites. My name is Jennifer.
And I'm Sedina. Each episode, we will feature a short story or novella. You can read along with us by finding the full reading list posted on our website, lastlibraryonTheLeft.com, or our social media at LLOTL Podcast.
And today we are talking about The Faceless Thing by Edward Hoch. It was published in 1963 by Health Knowledge Incorporated.
Wait,
and
what?
Yeah.
Health Knowledge Incorporated?
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
I don't know. And this is another one that's a part of the 100 Little Hair-Raising Horror Stories. And if you can't find it, just search it on Goodreads. There is a link in one of their message boards to where you can read the book.
Yeah, I did see that.
So, okay, the summary that I wrote for it was an old man, his name is Buddy, returns to his family home, hoping to confront the creature who killed his sister 50 years ago. And in the book, and correct me, because I read these so long ago. These are probably, I think, the first ones that I read. So y'all probably know by now, my short-term memory is not the best. I heard a ding. Was that yours?
It was an email coming through to everybody, so David's was that too.
So yeah, I read these a long ago. My short-term memory is not the best. That's why Sedina consistently has to oh, no, it was this. Because I have so many things that I juggle and my short-term memory is just shit.
It's fine. Both my sister's short-term memory are crap too.
Yeah, my baby sister is always like, you don't remember this? And I'm like, no, I really, truly don't. I'm so sorry. That's why I have a bullet journal and I have to write down everything because that's the only way I'll remember anything.
Wow.
So I really like the story. Just to go and start that off. This was probably one of my favorites from the book that we read, the anthology.
Really?
Yes. And I think...
Oh yeah, you're going to have to lead this whole conversation.
I think the reason why I liked it was because there was so much anticipation that I felt. So to me, this was a little bit more campy. And I think that's why I liked it. Because it was sort of like a breath of fresh air for me. Because we've been doing a lot of psychological stuff that's been triggering me a lot, which we'll discuss that later. I cannot wait to have that discussion. Because I told Sedina that we got a review and someone called me something and it triggered me, and I don't think it was meant to trigger me, but it did, and we're gonna have a conversation about it because we have to. Anyways, so in this book, this guy goes back to his childhood home and he takes a long time trying to get to the farmhouse that is no longer there.
No, it is.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. It starts
I thought it collapsed. Oh, no, it didn't collapse.
Yeah. And that's what he was so surprised with. I think that part of the horror setup was that he was like, this house was falling apart when I lived here. And it's been 50 years since anyone has lived here. How is this damn thing still standing? And I was like, oh no, this house is not. And it's a farmhouse too. And I was like, nope.
Yep, it has all the no's. If you've watched any 80s, 90s horror, you know not to go any further. And this man went further, and that was his biggest mistake.
Yeah, you don't go to the dilapidated farmhouse, even if especially in fact, if it was your family's dilapidated farmhouse, and if it's surrounded by fields, why?
And then to top it all off, someone's like, hello there. I would have booked it and ran, and you never would have seen me over there.
Because these people don't live close by. What was she doing there?
Right. And he engages in conversation with this old woman who's like, you're a buddy, aren't you? And
I'd have been like, no.
No, I would have been like, yeah, I gotta go. My mom is calling me. I don't know. I would have come up with something and I would have left. So many red flags already. And he's not paying attention to any one of them. He's never watched a horror movie in his life.
True.
But he wants to find out. His sister was killed 50 years ago and he's trying to resolve that for himself, I guess. And he's talking to this old woman. I wrote in my notes that he can't remember her name. I was like, that's definitely not a good sign that he cannot remember her name.
But also he remembered from his youth that she was already really old before he even left the house. And now it's been 50 years. And he was like, how is she also still here? So I had a lot of bad vibes from the farmhouse and the old lady, but they were both red herrings.
Yeah. And then he's engaging with conversation with her and reliving the past a little bit. So you're getting to hear, because it was the brook that took her in, the sister?
Yeah, so what it was that the last field on their property had like a creek, and the creek, he said, when it overflowed and it began to drain, that all the clay and mud that was usually dry around became like this ooze, and that he would go play in the ooze, which like classic creek kid vibes right there. I've been that creek kid too, but he would go follow the origin of the water drainage, and he found it in like a tunnel, which is like very Dairy vibes, was not a fan. And he said his sister came along with him once, and something, and I should have seen that this was suspicious, because like the first time out of all the times he went to go play in the ooze, something rose up out of the ooze, and he said it was stinky and hairy, and that it killed his sister.
And so he's telling the story as he's talking to the woman, and they're walking, and I thought that they were walking to the brook just so he could see it, which is my belief.
No, I think that, okay, well, first off, I had a lot of suspicions, did not like, whatever. When he first started describing the big, hairy, living ooze or whatever, and that it took his sister, I was like, okay, so is this like a skunk ape type thing?
Yeah.
You know? Or a creature like a skunk ape? And I was like, but I don't think that that's what's happening here. I was not feeling this story.
This one was weird. I still like the weirdness of it, because he goes up to the brook and he's like talking to it, and he's like, come out.
Because the old lady that came with him for whatever reason, okay. So she was like, everybody thinks you killed your sister. And it was, he didn't tell anybody about his sister being taken by the thing, and they found her body the next day, which was also suspicious. I don't know. Do you remember that part in the story where he was talking about because he's like divorced, or his wife is whatever, but that he had married a woman, and he was like, and I thought the affection would grow and that we'd fall in love eventually, because that's how marriage works. I was like, that is not how marriage works. But he was like, I wonder if I married her because she reminded me of my sister. And I was like, wait, hold up, what? So lots of red flags there. Gross. 1. 2, reminding you of your sister. Gross. Reminding of your dead sister. So it's a memory of a child, and you're marrying a woman who reminds you of a child. Ew, gross. Like, what does that accomplish? Why would you have done that? Was there like some perverse way to find forgiveness for his sister's death by marrying someone who reminded him of his sister? My note literally just says, gross. Why are men like this?
Yeah, he was very suspicious. I want to say halfway through, because you weren't sure what his motives were, because I feel like there was a motive there to allow his sister to come with him, or to bring his sister with him. At first, I thought that the ooze was sort of like the thing from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, yeah.
So I was thinking along those lines. And then when the old woman came along, I was like, oh, she's definitely a witch, and she's in cahoots with the ooze, and like that's why she's staying there. I had so many theories playing around in my head, because I couldn't figure it out.
That's a good theory, though, because why else was she on that property?
Right, because I was like, she's immortal. This ooze thing seems to be immortal, and she's protecting the property. And
although she said something weird about the ooze. She was like, if you're looking for a monster, why do you think it'll still be there? If it's been 50 years, won't it be dead by now? That's a good question.
Right, but then at some point she goes, oh, we're all so old. It's like, but like, she was confusing in and of herself too. And then his connection with the ooze, the way he was like telling the ooze, because I wrote in here, he tells the ooze to rest, and I was like, but wait, how can you talk to the ooze, and how does the ooze understand you? I was like, what is the relationship between this man and the ooze?
Do you want to hear my theory?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was like, what the hell was the story? What fuckery did I just read? Let me go look into this. So my last note is just a bunch of like, wait, what?
Mine too.
So I started to like think about it. I was like, okay, this man, he said that this thing has kept him up for his entire life. Memories of this thing happening, something coming up out of the ooze and killing his sister. But the way her body was found later made it sound like she had drowned. I don't know. And I began to suspect that the ooze was a representation of his guilt.
Ooh, yeah.
And that is why it haunted him. And that really maybe it was the guilt of his sister falling in the creek and drowning in the mix of clay and mud and whatever. And that maybe there's some guilt that he killed his sister. Maybe he did it intentionally. I don't know. When the old lady was like, oh, everybody thinks you did it, he didn't deny it. So
right, he didn't.
Yeah, maybe there's some part of him that's like, oh, I did do it. And so at the very end, when he confronts the ooze and he's the only one who sees it, he has to like go into the tunnel and it like rises up, but he said it acted as if it was old and tired, and then he was just like, okay, rest now, and then it just went back down. And I was like, was that your way of confronting your guilt over what happened?
I could definitely see it, and that makes the most sense to me because I just couldn't wrap my head around his relationship with the ooze itself. Because if we go by my theory that, because I originally thought that this ooze creature was something that he sacrificed his sister for something.
He did have a really profitable life. He said that he went on to become a politician and like traveled the world.
But see, I just feel like if you have to sacrifice once for one thing, like in most horrors, it's not just one sacrifice you have to make, right? You have to make multiples, and they gradually are worse and worse. So I mean, it could be both of those theories are okay, but I kind of really like yours a little bit better, that it's the manifestation of his guilt.
I mean, that's all I could think of. I read a bunch of different reviews and stuff like that on this particular short story, and that was kind of what I had to come away with in order to better understand what I had read.
It was really interesting. I'll tell you something. The reason why I really love this story and why it's one of my favorites is because of the very end where the lady's like, I want to make you some tea. And he's like, sure. And then it just abruptly cuts. The reason why I like that is because with lots of horror movies that I've seen, they do that sort of stuff. Lots of TV shows, they just abruptly cut and you have to figure out the ending yourself. In the back of my mind, I kept thinking like he is attached to this woman now for some odd reason, and that, oh, maybe he's going to stay on the farm, or maybe she's like a Hansel and Gretel type and she going to take care of him. I don't know. But my mind just, I loved the ending just because it was so abruptly cut. And I was like, wait, what?
I like how we both have the same last note of, wait, what? And you're like, I love it. And I'm like, no, what is wrong here? Let me figure this out.
Yeah. I think it's just because sometimes you just can't figure things out. I couldn't figure him out.
Ma'am. I will always figure it out.
See, and I'm like, sometimes you just can't. I'm okay with it. So it's all right.
No, I hate that. That's like one of my biggest, that could drive me crazy. If there's not an answer, if there's not a solution, if there's just some like nebulous, ambiguous thing, and I'm like, I hate it. Why would you do that to me?
That's why we're such a good pair. Because I'm like, see, it's chill, just chill. It's all right. It's all right.
I'm over here raging, like shaking the book.
Yeah. There's some things that we'll just never know about. The 80s commercial, 90s commercial of the Tootsie Roll Pop. How many licks does it take to get to the center? The world may never know, right?
No, like, I'm that owl that just ate through the whole thing. It's like, screw it. I found a workaround.
Yeah. You're not the owl. You're the kid looking at that pop like, what in the F? That's who you are.
Old.
I know. The other day, one of my coworkers was like, I'm going to watch Saved by the Bell. I don't know what it is. And I was like, oh my gosh. I grew up with it, so okay, thanks.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I'm old and I know it. It's okay.
Is there anything else you want to talk about this one?
Well, I will say that even though I said I love this one, there's another one that I really liked that I confused this with.
I understand you liking that one better, though. I do.
Yeah, this one was good. But there's another one that was really good. And I think we're covering it a lot. Okay, so I told Sadina in pre-production that I had read and written notes for a book that we did not put in the 31 days from this anthology. Yeah. I'm on top of it. But yeah, I don't have anything else to add except that I'm a kooky person.
I'm good. I think the Faceless Thing was his guilt and he was a douchey person. So like that's, in all honesty, I would have preferred a haunted, dilapidated farmhouse or a skunk ape.
I would have taken a dilapidated haunted farmhouse too. Alrighty, well, we'll see y'all tomorrow.
Bye guys.
Bye.
If you liked listening to us ramble on about horror, subscribe to our podcast and tell your friends. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at LLOTL Podcast. Check out our website by going to lastlibraryontheleft.com. Be sure to visit our About Us page to discover our 2 truths and a lie. Or, if you'd like to send us an email, you can reach us at somethingwicked@lastlibraryonTheLeft.com.